Okay, hello and welcome back, everybody. We're going to be taking a look at activity 5.2b miniature train. So, some of you have been taking a look at the IDWs, the set of working drawings, the exemplars, and you're starting to put all those drawings together, and you're seeing that there are some things that maybe look a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and just give you a quick video tutorial on how to do a multiple range of things. So when we go out here and take a look, for example, at this would be the hitch peg. And if we go out here and take a look at this, we can see that, everything looks right in our top view. We can see a crazy looking line. And then below it, this is what we call a half section view. So let's just take a look at that real quick. So what we're basically saying is that if we took a line here, this is a cutting plane line, and if we followed a saw or a pair of scissors or something to cut this with, and we follow that line, okay, all the way up to the center point and out, okay, so we're actually cutting a chunk of this off, and if we remove this section of it and look in the direction that the arrow is telling us, this is what we're going to be seeing down here, and this is our section view. All right, when we actually look at the section view itself, you're going to be seeing that there is something called hatching or section lines. Okay, and we're going to have this hatching or hatch pattern or section lines anywhere that we're actually physically removing material as we're cutting the actual object. So we can see that this is totally made of some sort of solid material in this area. Okay, what we're seeing here on the left is, since we only removed a portion of this is actually what that view would look like for the actual object itself. Okay, so in order to do something like this, we're going to come up here and go to our base view. Okay, we're going to go out there and find that actual hitch peg. We're going to say open, but instead of creating our front view first, okay, I'm going to be going up to my view cube and establishing that as my top view. And I'm going to go ahead and just bump this to a 3:1 scale. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and move this right up here to the top of the screen. I'm going to go ahead and say OK. All right, since we have already established that, let's go ahead and right click. And let's go ahead and automate our center lines with buttons 1, 3, 4, 7, and 8 and say OK. The next thing we need to do is come out here and go to our section view here at the top. So go ahead and pick on section view. Now you need to select the view that you would like to add a section view to. So that's going to be this top view. So we're going to pick inside that view. Okay, now we're going to need to come out here and establish our cutting plane line. So in order to do that, we're going to come here to the center point, hover just for a moment. We are not picking. Okay, we're actually going to be dragging this down, and when we drag this down, you're actually going to be seeing that there is some tracking that's happening. It's actually tracking us from the center point into where our current cursor is. So we don't want to start this on the actual object line here. We actually want to drag this out. We want this to be beyond the actual object line. So I'm going to pick this to start. We're going to go to the center point. We're going to kick this to the right, keeping that totally horizontal. Extend past the object line. Okay, and now we're going to go ahead and pick for the third point. Now we're going to right click and say continue. And when we do that, we'll see it is wanting to give us this section view. We want that section view to be right here below it. Okay, now let's just take a look here. It's indicating that this cutting plane lines tag is AL. That's just it's a tag, it's a designation, okay, for that. And we look down here, it's saying, hey, section ALL has a scale of 3. Usually what I like to do is double click on that text, okay, go ahead and grab all of it and send that to a text height to 0.125 and say OK. Okay, so that's how you would create the section view for a hitch peg. Linkage peg is going to be the exact sort of thing we just did with the hitch peg. Axle peg, when we take a look at this, things are looking a little bit different. Okay, so what we're going to be doing is the cutting plane line this time is not going to be taking a portion of it. We can see that the actual cutting plane line is going all the way through it. So we're going to come out here. We're going to go to our base view. We're going to go out there and select our axle peg as our actual IPT. So I'm going to pick on axle peg. I'm going to say open. Okay, once again, just like last time, we're going to be identifying our top view first. I'm going to go ahead and flip this over. Okay, according to our view cube, I'm going to bring this up here. Now, please be very careful. Please note that the points on this, okay, are going to be matching up, and the points are going to be out on the sides. If, for example, if your axle peg actually comes in where the flats are on the side, okay, this is not going to look like the like the view that you see over here. So you do need to make sure you do the flip on this to make sure that the points or the corners are on the outside of this view. So that looks like that's a scale of 3, so I'm going to go ahead and say OK. I'm going to right click and go ahead and automate those center lines. Buttons 1, 3, 4, 7, and 8. We'll go ahead and get our center lines. Okay, and now we're basically ready to go for our section view. So we're going to be starting out the same exact way we did last time. We're going to come up to our section view. Okay, and when we pick on section view, you have to pick the view. Okay, this time we're going to be starting here from the center. We're going to go ahead, we're not picking on it, we're just going to hover over it, and we're going to see that that is now tracking. We're going to start our cutting plane line, okay, beyond the actual object line. We're going to start it there, and we're going to send this all the way through it, past the object line on the other side, and we're going to go ahead and keep that horizontal. We're going to go ahead and pick for the second point. It's wanting to continue on, so we're going to go ahead and right click and say continue. And now we're going to go ahead and drag this section view down here below it. Once again, it gives you those labels. Okay, in this case, for me, it's AM. And by the way, on these labels, it could be, how it starts out is it starts out with like label A and it goes to B and C. Okay, it's going to go all the way through those designations until you get the Z, and then it's going to start again at like AA and then AB and so on. So that shows you how many times I've demoed with this drawing. It's keeping it in memory. I'm all the way up to AM. Okay, once again, we're going to go out here and double click on this. We're going to select all the text. We're going to make that 1/8 of an inch, and we're going to say OK. All right, don't forget you do have a center line on this one, so right click, automate the center lines 1, 3, 4, 7, and 8. And we're going to go ahead and say OK. And we should be getting a center line on that. Let's try that again. 1, 3, 4, 7, and 8. And he's being finicky. So if that's ever the case, annotate, come up here, go to bisector center line, pick this line, and pick this line, and you'll see how it's going to provide a center line to us. Okay, so that section view is actually very different from the last one. This is what we call a full section. Okay, we're actually going through the full object, and we're actually going to create the section view that I've just shown you. Last part of this, I'm going to go ahead and just delete this former view. Last part of this, in order to be able to see that there is actually an arc here, is you're going to come in here, go to detail, you're going to pick this view, and you're going to create your scoping in this area right here, and you're going to drag this to the side. All that is just a magnification. Okay, it's a detailed view of what we see here, and we could actually come out here and dimension that as well. Once again, go out there and crank that down to 1/8 of an inch for your height and say OK. Okay, so that's how you would do it for the axle peg. Taking a look here, stack is going to be done in the exact same way that we did the hitch peg as well as the linkage peg. So you should be able to do that, no problem. Okay, cow catcher gets a little bit more interesting. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and keep my sheet. You've already got a sheet established for you. I need a big wide open space so I can actually demo this. So let's take a look here. Say with cow catcher, we can do 3 views very quick. We're going to go ahead and establish this as our front view, and we can go out there at the same time and create this as our top, and this is our left side view. So let's go ahead and do that. But it has to be in this orientation. So let's go ahead and do that. Let's go to base view. Now let's go out there and let's select our cow catcher and open that up. So I want to go ahead and spin this using a view cube. I should be able to see the pegs on the back. Okay, so that would be my front view. This is a 1-to-1 scale, so I'm going to go ahead and just drag that where I need it to be. While we're doing this, we can see it's wanting to project the top view, so we can go ahead and drag that up, create our top view, and now come over here to our left side view. Establish that. Right click on it and say OK. Okay, we can see we have multiple hidden lines that are showing up. In the example that I gave you, you can see there are not hidden lines, so let's go back out there. Okay, double click on the parent view, and let's turn those hidden lines off by selecting the second button, which means the hidden lines have been removed, and say OK. Okay, so there's our front, our top, and our left side view. Okay, so the next part of this is we need to create what we call an auxiliary. And since we're going to have 2 different auxiliaries, the first one we're creating is what we call a primary auxiliary, and the second one is what we call a secondary auxiliary. So in order to do this, okay, we're going to be coming up here and go to auxiliary. Now, the reason of why we're creating the auxiliary, you're not going to see up front. You'll see it in the very end. But we're trying to basically get to a point where we can see this face here, okay, of the cow catcher. We want to look directly perpendicular at it. Since this was made with loft, right now it's at a really funny angle, but we want to get directly on that face so we can truly see that the offset distance on that, I believe, is 0.1. Okay, so let's go to auxiliary. We're going to go ahead and pick on the left side view. Okay, now we're going to be navigating over here, and I'm going to zoom in so you can see this. We need to be picking this edge, so we're going to pick this edge, and when we do that, you're going to see how it's going to create a view for us. Go ahead and just drag that view up to a position about right here and pick it. Okay, so that is our primary auxiliary, but we are still not able to see this face. So what we have to do is create an auxiliary off of an existing auxiliary. So that's what we call a secondary auxiliary. So we're going to go to auxiliary again. We're going to pick this new auxiliary view that we've just created. And now this time I'm going to zoom in. We're going to be picking on this edge, and we're going to be pulling this over here to the left. Sorry, just kind of hiccup there. But anyway, so now we can actually see this cow catcher from that perpendicular angle. Okay, and now here's the really cool thing is now when we go out here to annotate this, okay, to actually dimension this, if we put a dimension here, and I want you to actually put a dimension there, is if we pull this out, we will actually see that the offset we used in order to create that sketch was actually 0.1. So there's that 0.1 dimension I was talking about. Just ignore it if it's not, 7 or 8 decimal place accuracy, whatever this is. Yours is going to be coming through as 3 decimal place accuracy or 2 decimal place accuracy. That is totally fine. Okay, so the next part of this is we do want to actually come out here and create a section view because we actually want to show that the pocket, this pocket here, and you can see it better in this view, is actually extruded in a distance of 0.05. Okay, in order to do that, we're going to have to come out here and go to Place Views, come here to Section View, and now we're going to be selecting on this view. Okay, the section view that we're going to be creating, we're going to be starting here from the midpoint. We're not picking on it, just hovering, and we're going to be tracking this down and going beyond the actual object line. We're going to pick that to start. We're going to be bringing this up. There's absolutely nothing mathematical about this, so just bring it up, say about this far, and pick your second point. And now you're going to be coming out here. Now bring the line beyond the object line. Okay, but what you need to be looking for, and this is a little bit tricky sometimes, what you need to be looking for is going to be that perpendicular snap right there. I don't know if you can actually see that marker or not, okay, but there is that perpendicular marker. This is only going to work if you see the perpendicular marker. When you see the perpendicular marker, go ahead and pick for your third point. We're done making that cutting plane line. Now we're going to right click and say continue. Now it's going to be giving us the section view, and go ahead now and move the section view over to this area over here. Go ahead and pick to place that. Okay, once again, double click on this. Okay, and let's go ahead and change that to 1/8 of an inch for our height. Just makes it a little bit smaller, a little bit easier to work with. And we can see that the tags on this are AT this time. Okay, so we can see that this is section view AT, and the scale on this one is 1:1. Okay, now the most important part about this is we're going to come up here and actually dimension. And we're going to pick this line, and that should be giving us a dimension of 0.05, and we can see that that is correct. The last part of this that we have to do is actually come out and create an isometric view. So let's go ahead and let's just place a view. Let's go ahead and let's project off of that front view to give us this isometric view here. Now we can see that this is obviously not the best orientation for an isometric view. We're actually looking at the back of the cow catcher. So we're going to double click this. I'm going to come up here and pick on this corner to orient this where we can actually see the front of the cow catcher. Now since this is an isometric view, this is what the human eye would see. So I'm going to go ahead and make this shaded, and I'm actually going to bump this up to a scale of, looks like a 1.5 on scale. Now, you are now looking at the major reason why we usually don't use the color override of black, because if we were to actually create a PDF and print this out, is that this would just be one large black hole sort of on our sheet of paper. It's not very good. I have figured out a workaround, so I'm going to go ahead and explain how to do that, how we can get this to work best for us, because it actually is black in reality. So what you're going to be doing is you're going to be coming out here and getting close to the cow catcher. You can see that there are edges in here. So what I want you to do is when you see this edge highlight in red, just go ahead and pick it. Okay, we want to do multiple edges at one time. So before you pick your second edge, hold down the control key, and I would just hold down the control key as I'm picking all these edges, and we can click an entire batch of these, okay, as we are navigating around this model. So I'm going to go ahead and pick all those, and it should look something like this. Now the other issue is there's actually an edge back here between the cylinder and the back part of our cow catcher. I'm still holding down control. I'm going to pick that edge as well. Okay, so I've now picked all those edges. Now I want you to come back to one of these edges, and you're going to be right-clicking on that edge, and you should be seeing something called Properties. Go ahead and pick on Properties. Okay, when you go into Properties, you're going to be seeing this color box. Go ahead and pick on the color box. And in this palette here, you should be seeing that you can do white as an override for those edges. Say OK and OK. Now, a lot of people think this doesn't work. What I'm going to have you do is when you hit the Escape key, okay, that's going to basically, deselect them, and you're going to see that that white override is there for those edges. Now, teaching this in the past, some people have accidentally picked the view as well at the same time. And if that's the case, the properties box is going to be grayed out. So hit escape and start again, making sure that you are just picking the edges only. And this is a great solution of how you can go out there and bring those edges forward on a black object. In this case is the cow catcher. Okay, and finally wheel. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and just quickly create a new sheet for wheel just to give myself enough real estate. Let's take a look at this. All right, so we're going to come out here. First, we're going to be establishing this as our base view, is just the wheel that you see in front of you. So let's go out here and do that. So I'm going to go to base. I'm going to come out here now and select my wheel IPT and do an open. I'm going to go ahead and use my view cube. I want to orient this in the right direction. Now, I'm just going to let you know, the peg that makes up the actual wheel is not going to be on the right-hand side. It does need to be at the very top. So what you're going to have to do is come up here, use your arrows on a view cube, okay, and you're going to rotate that to the top. Okay, now we're looking pretty good. I'm going to place that into the position, and I'm now going to go ahead and say OK. Now when we place that view in, you'll see that this view is not going to look like the view that I have established here. Okay, and the reason is that I had to actually go out there and hit a couple check boxes to show these lines. And the best way to sort of explain it is, if you've ever seen a topography map, okay, topography shows elevation or change in elevation in landscape. And that's basically what we're trying to do with the wheel. We're trying to indicate that there are fillets on that, and there's a dip or there's a pocket in there. So here's how you can go out there and change that quickly. Go ahead and double click on that view. Come here to display options. You're going to be looking for the first box, which is tangent edges, and the second box, which is foreshorten. When you pick on that, you're going to see how it's going to give you these additional lines. It's going to give you more of an idea of the actual true shape and the features of that actual wheel. Okay, jumping back here to the exemplar, you're going to see that we are going to establish a cutting plane line that's going to go from the top down to the center point and back over to the right. So this is going to be a half section view. And then we're going to establish this section view over here. And this is what you're going to be able to see. So jumping back over here to the wheel working drawing that we were working on. Okay, let's go ahead and come in here to our section view. So going up to section view, we're going to be selecting on that wheel view. Okay, we're going to be tracking this point from the center point all the way at the top. Make sure to start outside the object line. Pick it. To start it, go to that center point, kick it over to the right, keeping that horizontal going past the object line. Pick your third point. Now right click and say continue. And now drag that section view over here to our left. Okay, just to give us a little bit of room for our actual tag down here. Okay, you might have to go out here and sort of move this around, but let's go ahead, let's double click on that. And let's select all that text, and let's just drop this down to 1/8 of an inch text, just to bring it down a little bit smaller. Okay, don't forget your automated center lines. So if you right click, go to automated center lines, 1, 3, 4, 7, and 8. Okay, those are all picked. We get our center marks. Same thing here on the section view. Automate the center lines, 1, 3, 4, 7, and 8, and say OK. Okay, so we have that done. Now jumping back to our exemplar, taking a look at that, we're going to see we have two different detail views. We can see that these are some very small details, okay, on this view. So we're going to make a detail view of this, which is going to be this one up here. as well as this area over here. And this is basically taking a look at the cylinder and the spoke, and we're going to create that detail view over there. Okay, so jumping back over to here. Okay, we're going to come up here to detail view. We're going to select this view, and we're going to do all of our scoping in this area right here. And we're going to be bringing that detail view up here towards the top. Okay, once again, double clicking the text, highlighting that. Okay, and let's go ahead and change that to 1/8 of an inch text, 0.125. Okay, let's go ahead and do another detail view, and we're going to be sort of starting this scoping, and it's going to be in this area here. We want to include both the cylinder and the spoke, and we're going to be dragging this up here at the top. Okay, and then let's just double click that text. Let's highlight it all, and let's change that to 0.125 for our text height. Okay, and that should be it on the wheel. So a lot of information there regarding section views, auxiliary views, detail views. But once you kind of get the hang of it, you can quickly go out there and establish the cutting plane lines and the scoping, and get those specialty views that you're looking for. So there you go. That's all your specialty views and setup for your working drawings and Activity 5.2b miniature train.